15 years.
This curriculum was developed by some of the brightest minds in the province.
It is being billed as a back-to-basics approach to math. For students, it will mean classes that also include financial literacy and coding. A new math curriculum is coming to elementary schools across the province. This follows the Ford government's promise to scrap the way math is currently being taught in Ontario. And despite the pandemic, the new curriculum will roll out in September. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
In Ontario's education system, math is the problem child. Different governments have tried different changes. This time, it's back to basics.
This is the first new elementary school math curriculum in 15 years. It's clear that a lot has changed since 2005, and our children's education needs to change with it.
Over the past decade, setting aside the year when exams were cancelled over a labour dispute, the percentage of grade 3 students meeting the provincial standard in math has steadily declined. Among grade 6 students, only half met the standard for the last 4 years running.
This curriculum was developed by some of the brightest minds in the province. Its development was supported by leading-edge research and advice from academics, from math education experts, from job creators, industry, nonprofit leaders, and of course you, our parents.
Students will be expected to memorize basic addition and subtraction and their times tables. There's a new emphasis on mental math, adding and subtracting in your head. Financial literacy will be taught in all grades, and coding is introduced in grade 1.
Do I think it's important to teach basics? Yes. Do I think mental math is important? Absolutely. Do I think math facts are important? Of course. But we cannot go backwards. We must go forwards, and we need a new approach to teach kids.
Even though COVID-19 has kept Ontario schools shut since March, the new math curriculum will launch in September.
I would argue from a competitive landscape, we must take action immediately to improve math scores. We were given a mandate by the people of this province to go back to basics, bring a math curriculum that actually reflects the priorities of the job market.
No doubt that's something that needs to be addressed. But to do that in the middle of a pandemic without even consulting educators and education workers, teachers in our province it's just unbelievable.
Teachers will be offered training on the new curriculum over the summer. For teachers who decline, the government says recorded webinars will be available in the fall. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Health officials are reporting a small spike in COVID-19 numbers. 216 new cases of COVID-19 are being reported in Ontario. The province had reported fewer than 200 new daily cases in 8 of the last 10 days. Now, officials are also reporting the first COVID-19 linked death in a patient under 20 years old. Toronto Public Health says a girl under the age of 9 died with COVID-19, but add her death wasn't a result of the disease. Tomorrow will be a big day as patios get ready to open their doors again.
Your patio license is cut in half. So we were licensed for 50, it's now 25. However, the tables have to be 6 feet apart. So we can meet capacity, but that depends on if we have 6 or 4 bodies at every table. So that will, determine our sales.
At this beach's pub, staff are busy getting ready. Besides having their beer kegs up and running and the bar stocked, the pub will also have disposable menus. And if you want a touchless experience, you can access the menu through a QR code. Customers will also have the option of providing personal details that can be used for contact tracing if necessary. Peel Region will join Toronto in Stage 2 tomorrow. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crosby says the time is now right.
This decision is also reflective of the significant progress we've made as a region over the past 3 months. We are in a good position here in Mississauga. Cases have stabilized, and we're on the tail end of the curve with only 14 new cases reported yesterday.
Stage 2 also means some amenities in Mississauga will open to the public soon. Basketball courts and sports fields will be available starting Friday. The wading pool at Celebration Square will open Saturday, July 4th. And Square One Shopping Mall announced it will open at 11 tomorrow morning with social distancing and enhanced cleaning measures in place. Since the pandemic began, nearly 70 residents at Camilla Care in Mississauga have died from COVID-19. Last month, the province took control of the home. Police were already investigating allegations of abuse. Now, new accusations have surfaced. Alicia Son now with the latest.
Since the hospital network Trillium Health took over Camilla Care, more allegations of abuse and neglect have surfaced. 11 more. According to this leaked memo sent to families, that brings the total to 16 residents impacted. And they've placed implicated staff on leave, including 5 from Camilla Care, 1 employee from Trillium Health, and 1 agency employee. They haven't said exactly what the complaints are, but it has to do with neglect and mistreatment of residents.
We need a totally independent inquiry that takes a look at the entire sector.
The president of the union representing service employees in healthcare says what's allegedly happening at one home could allegedly be happening at others.
This has not just been something that we woke up to, in February when COVID hit our country.
We're hearing like just horrible stories.
People from across the province have started talking about what's happened to their loved ones while in long-term care.
Left in dirty briefs overnight because the previous shift thought the next shift would do it. Bed sores that go through to the bone.
Innes Ingram's mother lives at Camilla Care. Last month, he held a hunger strike. He's encouraged now that Peel police are looking into abuse allegations and says this to the people out there.
You're not alone. There's a lot of families going through the same stuff that you are.
The SEIU wants families and staff to keep reporting their concerns.
So now it's, I hope, not only a reckoning, but an awakening that we all commit to do better for seniors in our lives and in Ontario.
Sienna Senior Living, the company that owns Camilla Care, has hired a former Deputy Attorney General of Ontario to do a company-wide review. When asked about these recent allegations, they said they are deeply troubled. Trillium Health is asking that people come forward if they have any similar complaints or concerns over their loved ones. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Mississauga.
Opposition leader Andrew Horwath held a virtual meeting with families today, rallying against the province's bill to protect long-term care homes from being held responsible for the health of their residents.
So to hear the Ford government propose a bill that is being like Bills 175 to essentially protect those who preyed on our vulnerable loved ones, which by the way could be any of us because our health is not guaranteed. To let down those who cared, raised, and fed us is despicable.
We'll never be able to say that we won this fight. We've lost far, far too much, but we can still take action now to ensure that we protect people in long-term care and ensure accountability in the cases of those who lost their lives.
Instead of protecting these homes from civil suits, Horwath says the government should be focusing on launching an independent judicial inquiry into long-term care homes and create a new system that is safe for all residents. To fight for that change and have their voices heard, dozens of people marched to Queen's Park this morning.
We want justice! We want justice!
The group is hoping to show the province that they are against any government protection for long-term care homes. The province is looking at protecting organizations and people, including healthcare providers, from civil lawsuits during the pandemic if they acted in good faith. Family and friends who have lost loved ones showed up to the rally today, calling out the names of family members and friends they lost. They say they deserve the right to seek justice.
Things need to change and people need to stop sweeping this under the carpet. The ministry inspects, they dismiss, they do their reports, they throw it on Google, then you can read all about these people being cited, but there's no consequences. You commit a crime, you get charged. There is no accountability.
The province has said they are considering protection for private long-term care homes, but have not passed any legislation yet. Pearson Airport showing off what is being done to keep travelers and staff safe in the COVID-19 era. The airport says in order to safely welcome back passengers, it has stepped up disinfecting of high-touch areas, from robots cleaning the floors to a passenger disinfection corridor where you can get spritzed with a saline mist. Pearson says the entire experience, from the bathrooms to check-in, security, and parking machines, are now touchless.
This was always a very clean airport, but we've taken it up 3 or 4 factors. So we've deployed technology. We talked about the robots. We have fogging machines. We have SWAT teams that go around to intercept, high-touch areas, constant wipe down of areas people touch every single day. The implementation of social distancing, so you see the decals on the floor to have that 6 feet apart. The mandatory of masks. Everybody you see here today has a mask.
Pearson will only be allowing passengers and workers in the airport. The pandemic has seen the normally busy facility fall eerily quiet, with passenger traffic down 90% from the same time last year. What is also down, Colette, is the heat. They've turned it down a little on us.
Yeah, changes to our weather. Boy, oh boy. Today, the high only 24.5. But if we just look back over this past week, we had 6 days where our temperature was 27 degrees or warmer because, in fact, 5 of those days the temperature was 29 degrees or warmer. The last 3, 30 degrees or warmer. Yeah, we've been into the heat, so we're finding that's come down. We know that. I just said the temperature was cooler. We've brought in some rain, so the dry conditions we've changed that. So there's only one thing left really to change, and that's the humidity, and that's changing too. It will be. We've got this cold front that's been moving through, some active weather associated with it as well, but here are your current temperatures that we're looking at. Now, the humidity is still here. If you look at the humidex values, still feels like the low 30s in Toronto, 32, and St. Catharines at 31, Hamilton 32, and Mississauga as well. Some of that active weather, you can see some of the lightning strikes. There were some severe thunderstorm warnings earlier in the Niagara region and up into cottage country too around Barrie in the Midland area. Those are all tracking along with that front, moving off towards the east. Still, we have the risk of seeing a few isolated showers back here, showing up again a little later on this evening and into the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning, but nothing like what's along that front there. The humidity will start to come down as the dew points start to come down. You'll feel it more so into Wednesday. So more comfortable air will be moving into. So that's really kind of where that front is. So those temperatures that are coming down, also it's because those winds changing direction. 15 overnight tonight. Look at that. More seasonal. 23, Dwight, for our high tomorrow.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Protests continued in Malton this morning, where Ijaz Chowdhury died Saturday after police shot him in his home after being called for a wellness check. His family is still demanding answers as the SIU investigates. Meanwhile, the Canadian Centre for Addiction and Mental Health is calling for reform on how these types of calls are responded to. Talia Ricci explains.
News of another mental health crisis ending in tragedy is deeply unsettling for doctors like David Greatzer.
We don't think police should be the first responders. They shouldn't have to shoulder that burden. We believe that people trained in mental health should ultimately be the people who respond to mental health crises.
Canada's largest mental health hospital is voicing its support for a change, saying our system should look at successful international models where people in crisis are first met by mental health responders, as well as investing more in community mental health support.
In mental health crises, people can get hurt, and obviously we do see disproportionately many of them coming from racialized communities. Mental health professionals deal with agitated patients frequently, and they understand that certain techniques can be highly successful.
In January, Peel Police launched a mobile crisis response team. It's made up of 2 teams with 2 members each, a crisis support worker and a specially trained police officer. They're deployed every day.
Here in Toronto, there are 10 mobile crisis intervention teams made up of a police officer and a crisis nurse. They're also deployed daily, usually for 10-hour shifts. But these teams are not considered first responders.
It took decades to get to where we have those teams.
Former Toronto Police Board members say the conversation about shifting who responds first goes back decades.
And so it's time to admit that no matter what is in the hand of that person in crisis, whether it's suspected or you can visibly see it, if it's not a gun, then surely you have time to employ the use of mental health professionals to get the best outcome.
What I'm not happy about is that the teams are not 24/7.
and that they are not the first responders. That's where we hit a roadblock.
In a statement, the Toronto Police Services Board says it's open to exploring other models that may include services delivered by mental health experts without police. Dr. Greatzer hopes this national conversation does end in change.
They do understand how to deal with these things because that's their job.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
A Mississauga woman wants to know why she was shot by Peel police last month.
We know that there's a pattern of behavior of police taking lives, so I know that I'm very blessed to be here today. And I had no weapons, none of us did, because we know that they like to make that excuse as well. So that can't be done here. And I'm here alive and well to tell my story.
Krupa says her former partner called the police on her after the two were texting. It was Mother's Day, and then he argued about their son. Police characterized the call as a domestic dispute. Krupa claims she was told by police that night to come out of her home to talk to them. She and her current partner, Michael Headley, both left the home. The situation then escalated. Krupa and Headley say they were both hit by police stun guns. Krupa was then shot by an officer. She was hit in the abdomen and left with a fractured hip.
There is a video that shows the events as they unfolded that night. We're not releasing the video publicly just yet. We're waiting to confirm with the Special Investigations Unit that the police officers involved, there were two of them, that we're waiting to confirm that they've made statements.
In a release today, the SIU said 6 witness officers have been interviewed and the notes of 2 other officers have been reviewed. The subject officer has also been interviewed. Krupka's lawyer says a police search of Krupka's home led to charges under the Cannabis Act. Headley is facing charges of assaulting and obstructing police. Toronto police have identified the man who was gunned down on St. Clair near Lansdowne last Friday. 37-year-old Farooq Sadat was from British Columbia. The Muslim Association of Hamilton said he was laid to rest today. Last Friday, Sadat was inside his parked vehicle when 2 suspects shot him. The murder was partially captured on surveillance video. Investigators are asking anyone with dashcam video from the area between 10 and noon that day, that was last Friday, to get in touch. After the break, the online push to get retailers to think differently about the products they sell.
Typed in, like powerful t-shirts and typed in Black Lives Matter. And the first thing that popped up out of all the lists as you scroll down was All Lives Matter from Walmart. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
All right, our next story tonight. This one we've heard about before. Thornhill woman was convicted of killing a cyclist while driving drunk, has been arrested again for impaired driving. Now, the 27-year-old served prison time in the death of a 44-year-old man back in 2015. Now, she's facing charges after an incident over the weekend on Highway 400. Greg Ross has more.
I want to get drunk and I want to get behind the wheel and damn your life. I don't care. That's the clear message she's sending out.
Yu Lee says he was shocked to learn that the woman convicted in the death of his friend Ji Yong Kang 5 years ago has been charged for impaired driving again.
She should have got the message. She had caused grievous damage. The cost has been so high, and she still doesn't get it.
Back in 2015, Darya Selenovich was charged after police say she hit Kang, who was riding his bike at the time. According to police, Selenovich fled the scene in her BMW, but was arrested about 5 kilometers away after a high-speed chase.
Shocking, very shocking that the lady did this again.
Yulian Liao is Kang's ex-wife and mother of his now 19-year-old son. She didn't want to appear on camera, but over the phone expressed frustration that Selenovich would get behind the wheel again.
We wished before that the lady could have a second chance, second opportunity, but she should have realized to cherish the opportunity, to cherish her own life, cherish other people's life.
On Sunday night, drivers on Highway 400 called police to report someone driving erratically. It was Selenovich.
The reports from the citizens that she was all up and down in speeds, all across lanes. She ended up crashing into one of the concrete walls, almost sideswiped one of the complainants as well.
OPP Sergeant Carrie Schmidt says Selenovich had a blood alcohol level that was more than twice the legal limit. She's now facing 10 new charges, including impaired driving for the third time. She was also under a 10-year driving ban as the result of Kang's death.
Ban her for driving for life just doesn't work.
Lee also says the 7-year sentence Selenovich received after the death of Kang, which was reduced to 4.5 for time served, simply wasn't enough.
Society tend to treat, killing by vehicle much less seriously than other type of killing.
He would like to see a much stiffer penalty this time. Yang's ex-wife says Selenovich is lucky she didn't take another life.
My ex-husband is a son to a mom, is a brother to a brother and sister. And he is also a father to my child.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Walmart is being called out for profiting off of merchandise that counters the Black Lives Matter movement. The items have slogans such as All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter on them. Loretta Redekop has more.
Sharon Rochester was looking online for a T-shirt with a statement for her husband, maybe something with Black Lives Matter.
First thing that popped up out of all the lists as you scroll down was All Lives Matter from Walmart. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This can't be happening. Maybe this is a mistake.
She immediately went to Facebook and tagged the company. Turns out Walmart has a range of items if you search All Lives Matter. You can also find Blue Lives Matter, even a pair of booty shorts, Irish lives, homeless, animal lives. It seems they all matter, and you can buy the T-shirt.
Black Lives Matter is literally a call to action to stop killing us.
This professor says it's not just Walmart.
All major brands, they're in a tough spot right now because they know they have to respond to the tone and the tenor, right, of our times. And there's like a cultural shift that's happening.
Walmart Canada tweeted back to one person upset about these items, saying they're sold through a third party and they're looking into it. Earlier this month, the company's president put out a video statement promising Walmart would commit $100 million to a center on racial equity.
Let me say clearly to our Black and African American associates and communities, we hear you, we see you. I want you to know you're valued.
Institutions who make statements that they want to do the right thing, they want to be inclusive, they want to be diverse, they want to respect Black Lives Matter, Indigenous lives. And then when that's in conflict with commerce, then commerce normally wins.
Walmart also sells a range of Black Lives Matter items, including ones that read, "I can't breathe." In a statement, Walmart Canada says it stands against all forms of racism and discrimination. It says it will review the items up for sale on its website to ensure they comply with the company's terms and conditions. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
Today marks 35 years since Canada's worst mass murder, the Air India bombing. Air India Flight 182 disappeared from radar off the coast of Ireland after a bomb exploded on the airplane on June 23, 1985. 329 people were killed. Among the dead, 86 children and 280 Canadians in total. Victims' families, as well as Mayor John Tory, laid flowers at the memorial at Humber Bay Park East this morning. The only man convicted in relation to the bombing is now free after serving 30 years in prison. The mass murder was believed to be a terrorist attack by Sikh extremists against the Indian government for an army raid on a holy shrine in 1984. The City of Toronto announced millions of dollars in funding to support vulnerable populations during the pandemic.
We are announcing today that approximately $4.97 million from the TO Supports Investment Fund will be allocated towards community-based agencies who are supporting vulnerable residents that have been impacted upon by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The funding will go to agencies that fight homelessness, provide food access, mental health support, and other services such as housing, family, and income support. The money is coming from a mixture of different emergency funds and donations, including funding from the province. Toronto's public housing agency is in some hot water with the city's ombudsman. In a report, she says about a quarter of her workload is now coming from TCH tenants who say they are not getting help from TCH executives.
The process that existed was not adequate. And, you know, as a human being, if you want to put in a complaint and you're feeling like you're not being addressed, you're not being listened to, you're going to go to somebody else. And when something is not clear and transparent and with easy access, that's what happened. They went to the ombudsman.
According to a new report, complaints about TCH have spiked in the last 4 years from about 185 to 450. TCH says it has a new complaints process in place that is easier to use and more streamlined. The board believes the new process will help ease the problem. When we return, the effect of a new Trump ban on green cards could have for thousands of Canadians working in the States. Plus, the UK plans a major loosening of pandemic restrictions.
Today, we can say that our long national hibernation is beginning to come to an end, and life is returning to our streets and to our shops.
Social distancing is about to go down from 2 meters to 1. More on how the idea is playing out in England coming up after the break. U.S. President Donald Trump is revisiting an issue that is dear to his political base, border control. His administration has announced new restrictions for foreign workers and asylum seekers. With the election around the corner, the Trump campaign has been struggling to turn focus away from the growing pandemic and an uncertain economy and anti-racism protests. Stephen D'Souza has more.
I was just given a beautiful picture of the wall. That's before and after. And it's quite a difference.
Besieged by criticism, Donald Trump went to a place he feels comfortable, talking about border security and immigration at an event in Arizona.
Illegal immigration is down 84% from this time last year.
Trump is also targeting legal immigration, cutting back on the number of workers allowed into the United States. On Monday, the administration issued a broad order, temporarily freezing new work visas. The move targets thousands of foreign workers, particularly those coming into the lucrative tech sector. It also affects thousands of Canadians.
Panic. People are very nervous. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of questions that are coming out.
There's a debate right now as to whether Canadians who don't need a visa to enter the U.S. may be exempt.
I tend to tell clients that we should take a wait-and-see approach. They're going to issue guidance, and when they issue guidance, we'll have to adjust our plans accordingly.
Lawyer Andrea Vaitzner in Montreal says her colleagues have called 2 different border offices and got 2 different answers about who's covered by the president's order.
Our interpretation is that Canadians do not fall under it. We're concerned that the Trump administration will take another viewpoint and will try to argue that Canadians do fall under it in some way.
For some Canadians, the visa freeze is a boon, not a barrier.
We have people from Costa Rica, from Russia, from China, from India.
Calgary-based Irfan Raji specializes in helping tech workers having issues immigrating to the U.S. He settles them in Canada, where they work locally or remotely for American companies.
So long as Canada can use this opportunity and other opportunities to attract and retain the best labor from around the world, it will absolutely help us economically, both short-term and long-term.
Canadian tech giant Shopify put out a call on Twitter today telling tech workers with visa issues to consider Canada.
So we want to give jobs to Americans right now.
That's the president's goal with his plan, but it may be Canada that ends up benefiting. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
4 infectious disease prevention and control advisors to the White House testified before a congressional committee today in Washington. All agreed coronavirus testing must be ramped up, especially with a new jump in the number of infections in many states.
We are now seeing a disturbing surge of infections that looks like it's a combination, but one of the things is an increase in community spread. That's very troublesome to me. The way you address that is you have to have the manpower, the system, the testing to identify, isolate, and contact trace in an effective way so that when you see those increases, you can understand where they're coming from and you can do something about them.
Despite President Donald Trump's claim he told authorities to slow down testing, all 4 top advisors today testified he had not said that to them. Today, Trump repeated that more testing gives what he believes a false impression. Major surges in infections have been reported in Florida, Texas, Arizona, and other states as restrictions are relaxed. Dr. Fauci maintains a vaccine against COVID-19 could be ready by the new year. The British government unveiled big new plans today to further ease pandemic restrictions across England starting July 4th. It is good news for those eagerly hoping to get back to some sense of normalcy, but experts worry the country is still seeing at least 1,000 new cases a day, may be moving to reopen too quickly. Renee Filipponi has more.
I want to see bustle, I want to see activity, but let's be absolutely clear that I also want to see everybody being careful, staying alert, and following the guidance.
Today's announcement by Prime Minister Boris Johnson is the biggest step forward in easing the lockdown restrictions in England. A long list of things will be able to reopen as of July 4th, and that includes museums, galleries, movie theaters, restaurants, hotels, and pubs. This is all possible because the government has made the decision to reduce social distancing measures from 2 meters to 1 meter. There was a lot of lobbying from the hospitality industry to make this happen because of concerns that they could not turn a profit with the 2-meter social distancing. Now, in recent weeks, with the decline in COVID-19 infections, the Prime Minister says he feels it's time that they can take this step forward.
As we have seen in other countries, there will be flare-ups for which local measures will be needed. And we will not hesitate to apply the brakes and reintroduce restrictions, even at national level, if required. So I urge everyone to stay alert, control the virus, and save lives.
The opposition leader says he broadly supports the changes announced by the Prime Minister today, but wants to see more science to back it up. There has been a lot of criticism about the change from a 2-meter to a 1-meter social distancing guideline, pointing to science that say it could increase the COVID infection rate anywhere between 2 and 10 times.
It sounds all right if you're out of doors and you do keep that 1-meter distance apart. But if you're indoors, you're at a much greater risk because you're sitting in proximity to other people. You're not wearing masks if you're in restaurants and pubs. And the level of viral infection in the air could well be quite high.
There are also concerns that the track and tracing system here is not yet fully functional. But England isn't the only country moving to a 1-meter social distancing rule. It also applies in countries like France, China, and Singapore. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Some windows behind the camera here, Colette, and I think I can see the sun just trying to peek out right now.
Yeah, it's nice to see that as we get that cold front, Dwight, moving well off towards the east and pushing some of that rain away from us. We do get to see some breaks kind of developing, and it's going to be the sort of situation where there's a little bit of instability there. So some isolated showers still are going to kind of pop up and bubble up on us, though. But look at these temperatures now. It's getting a little more comfortable there. 24 degrees for Toronto and Hamilton, showing up 24 and 23 in St. Catharines. You can still see on the colors here, the contours, some of those oranges there, well over towards eastern Ontario. The nation's capital over in towards Montreal and southern Quebec too, they still are dealing with some of those 30s and those very warm temps, but everywhere else getting much more comfortable. Sarnia at 19. We look at the current humidex. London still with some higher dew points and into Hamilton too, but these dew points will come down. So for now, it's still a little bit sticky, but by tomorrow, a big difference. Here's what I mean. Now, Dwight's seeing some of that sun coming through. You can see the cloud deck moving off, but there's a bit of instability, so we're getting a few showers kind of bubbling up again. So we're not necessarily out of the woods in terms of it's necessarily going to be dry, and if you're going to be out that you wouldn't need an umbrella. I'd still be a little bit cautious, but you can see just how isolated those are. So still another hour or so with some of that sun that we could see some of these coming to us. Then we'll see kind of partly cloudy skies overnight tonight, and then tomorrow still a few isolated showers into the morning hours especially. That potential is there and a little bit of cloud cover as well, but we'll see the sun again into the afternoon. And again, just for those who are finding that it's just been just too humid, you're really going to love what you're going to have for the next couple of days. And then we're going to see our temperatures start to creep up again as we get towards Friday and into the weekend as well. Having a look towards Thursday, I do want to mention that along the north shore of Lake Erie, we could see some showers kind of showing up there, and at times those could get a little bit heavier too as we get a bit of training coming through. But it should stay drier towards the northern edge of Lake Ontario. Now, overnight tonight, these are your temperatures around 15 degrees all around in terms of those overnight lows. Really comfortable tomorrow with the daytime highs. These are closer to seasonal. In fact, just a degree or two actually coming in below seasonal. And then there you are into Thursday, still 24 and really comfortable. And it's on Friday that the temperature starts to go up, so the high about 28. As I'm looking at the weekend and what seems to be happening, yes, Saturday there is the potential. Some plans, outdoor plans, Dwight, could be ruined, not for the garden. It's looking good there. We could have some wet conditions, yeah, into Saturday.
We'll check back with you at the end of the show. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah, you got it.
To build a sidewalk or not to build a sidewalk, that's the debate dividing one Etobicoke neighborhood. The city plans to add new sidewalks on a street in the Bloor and Royal York area to enhance pedestrian safety. But as Farah Morelli tells us, one neighborhood group says sidewalks would make streets less safe.
South Kingsley Drive looks like many side streets in the city. But look a little closer and you'll notice something different. There are no sidewalks here, and there never has been.
The city is planning to replace the water main in this area next year, and while it's at it, it'll add a sidewalk to this street. As part of Vision Zero, every time the municipality digs up a road where there isn't a sidewalk, it adds one. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, not in this neighborhood.
It seems everyone in this area has an opinion on these non-sidewalks.
There's never been a sidewalk here.
It's never been a sidewalk, and we actually love it.
How do you feel about the city putting in some sidewalks there?
I'm definitely for it, especially now that everyone's walking due to COVID.
Fiona Campbell has been campaigning hard against installing sidewalks on this street.
A ton of concrete's a ton of CO2, and more importantly, they go down at least 2 or 3 feet to lay their gravel and to do their excavation, and they sever roots of the existing trees.
She's collected more than 1,200 signatures on a petition. Campbell believes it's not sidewalks that keep kids safe, it's safe walking practices.
You have to train them on how to walk down the road, how to traverse the city safely.
That's inside of the road, buddy.
But not everyone who lives on the street is on board.
There's such an obvious need, and it's not about people with young families. It's about people who have physical, disabilities, people who are young, old.
The city says it's received plenty of feedback from residents.
There is no sidewalk project without controversy. And so we always work with neighborhoods. There's often a divided opinion on whether people want sidewalks in locations where they don't exist today. And we work through those opinions.
Campbell's group vows to take its petition to City Council. While nothing is concrete, the city plans to start construction in 2021. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
When we come back, TIFF lays off dozens due to the pandemic, while a couple of Toronto museums reveal their reopening plans. We'll have the details for you coming up next. Organizers of the Toronto International Film Festival announced that they are letting go staff due to the impact of shutdowns because of the coronavirus. Yelena Azik joins us now to talk about this latest announcement. And Yelena, let's start with the unfortunate news about the TIFF layoffs. What do we know specifically about the extent of the cuts?
Well, you know, Dwight, let me give you a look at the statement that was issued by the co-heads of TIFF, talking about Joanna Vincent and Cameron Bailey. This is part of it. They said, we announced today the difficult decision to reduce our full-time staff by 17%. They say it represents 31 valued employees. The statement ends by saying that all TIFF employees are respected team members, and this is a heartbreaking decision. I think this is something we might unfortunately be seeing rolling around out across other arts organizations, Dwight, because they really have been impacted by no one going, no one able to attend. And now it is worth noting that TIFF is a not-profit organization. And so they are, you know, really dependent on people to support them. So they've said that they're also going to be cutting salaries for executives, senior management at all management levels, reduced expenses, canceled various projects. So they're really trying to do as much as they can to mitigate having to fire more staff or let go, really. It's difficult to even know the terminology anymore because it's just sad all around whenever anybody loses their job.
Even if you're a not-for-profit, you still need some kind of income coming in to pay staff, etc. Let's move on to some more positive news. Some museums and galleries are planning now to reopen.
Yeah, so, okay, on the hopeful end of the spectrum, Dwight, let's start with the AGO because they're saying that as of July 2nd, they're going to have a slow opening. So it kind of depends on whether you're a member or not. But it is worth reminding people that if you're under 25, you get in for free. And if you're not, you just pay $35 for the year. So it really is reasonable. They've got everything that you thought of before. They've extended some special exhibits. So Diane Arbus photographs will still be there. And Illusions, the Art of Magic, has been extended until November. And then you'll see the Indigenous art. You'll see the Henry Moore sculptures, as I say, the regular stuff. So that's going to be July 2nd, rather, for the AGO. Now, for a major art space that's got an even earlier opening, the Aga Khan Museum is opening its doors this weekend. Now, they've got a really prescient exhibit that they planned, Dwight, before COVID even happened. It's called Sanctuary, and it explores the idea of places that make us feel peace and at home, places that make us feel comfortable. They have 36 of the world's leading contemporary artists with their creative takes on, you know, prayer rugs and textiles. It's incredibly beautiful. And I had a chance to speak earlier with the director and the CEO of the Aga Khan Museum. His name is Henry Kim, and I love that he spoke with me in front of a backdrop of T-shirts. These are part of the exhibit because, again, I say it's textile-based, and he really did have a hopeful spirit about him. Dwight, have a listen.
For people who are older and vulnerable groups, we actually have 2 hours in the morning, which we devote exclusively to the vulnerable groups, because again, we want people to feel safe. We also want people to sort of restore, you know, museum and cultures and the arts back into their lives, because I think that's something people are craving. I think we've eaten enough during COVID. Now we have to actually nourish our hearts and souls and really get our minds thinking again.
Isn't that a beautiful way of putting it, Dwight? And you know, he did mention a few other points to me from a safety standpoint. You will be asked to wear a mask for sure. There's going to be staggered timing in place. Physical distancing will be in effect. And it's worth noting, Dwight, that they have beautiful grounds, a lovely garden. So for people who might feel more comfortable being in the outdoors, that's something that might be there for you. And now this is key. They have decided that for the next month, they are going to allow free entry. It will be free, or pay what you can if you can pay something. And that is something that they're saying is important to just keep making this art accessible and try to re-engage art, museums, galleries into our lives. Either way, it definitely seems like a positive and hopeful step, Dwight.
I have to agree with the gentleman you interviewed. It is important to nourish our hearts and souls. Thank you, Yelena.
You got it, Dwight.
We have more on the art restart when we come back.
You actually have to book your ticket online in advance and get a time ticket.
So I'd already had the experience of driving right into this gallery and was doing it every week when I came down here. And then suddenly it dawned on me that we could offer that same experience to the public.
As Canada continues to emerge from the pandemic shutdown, the country's art galleries have started to reopen. And since they are places that celebrate creativity, it's only natural they would bring that same spirit to keeping patrons safe. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains.
You can walk under these starry skies or take in the world of Vincent van Gogh through your windshield. This immersive exhibit, made up of large-scale projections of Van Gogh's paintings, was to open as a walkthrough only, but the pandemic made producers switch gears.
So I'd already had the experience of driving right into this gallery and was doing it every week when I came down here, and then suddenly it dawned on me that we could offer that same experience to the public.
According to a recent survey, 30% of Canadians said they'd go back to museums and galleries as soon as they reopen, but 27% said they'd wait another 5 months, and 42% were unsure. For galleries, being able to maintain distance between visitors is key in convincing their patrons it's safe to come back. There are lots of hand sanitizing stations, but no more benches or interactive screens to touch.
You actually have to book your ticket online in advance and get a time ticket. We don't want to have too many people in here because then it won't be safe.
The gallery opened doors first to frontline workers, like this first-time visitor.
I kind of welcomed the opportunity to do something, and this was something that was out of my regular routine.
At Charlottetown's Confederation Center, routes on the floors keep people moving in a set pattern, which helps with distancing. And all these practices have a silver lining. Art is viewed as it's supposed to be, up close, without jostling crowds.
Really, we want people to feel comfortable in a relaxed kind of mode when they're looking at art. It should be a pleasure. It shouldn't be something that they're fearful of.
As art galleries get creative to give people back some quiet contemplation and inspiration in a stressful year. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Before we get to the forecast, Colin, our floor director, was wondering about the glasses, and I'm sure viewers at home are too, because we don't usually see you in the spectacles.
I don't wear them that often. Like sometimes if I'm there's severe weather and I'm reading a lot of things or stuff like that, I put them on. It is a coincidence that since the pandemic, Dwight, my eyes have gotten a little bit worse. Totally a coincidence. But I know that for years to come, I am actually going to blame this pandemic. I mean, you and I both need readers. You know,
yes,
we always tease each other and that kind of thing. But they've actually gotten worse lately. So you may well see these coming out more often. It's just how it goes. Also how it goes, hey, we've got to change finally in our weather. We had quite a run there, didn't we, on the heat, the humidity. Okay, we still got the humidity, but that's changing too here. Just as the cold front goes through, it's going to bring down some of this stickiness here by as soon as tomorrow. I'm telling you, that's changing and taking the main rain event with it. But see bubbling up here a few little isolated showers, so you can still get into a little wet weather tonight, this evening, and even a few of these kind of popping up tomorrow. Highly isolated. Just want you to know about it. Know that tonight's low will be 15. Tomorrow closer to seasonal. In fact, a little bit below, Dwight. Let me just check. Yes, 23 degrees.
It is a good look. It makes you look even smarter than we know you already are.
I'm keeping them then.
Thanks, Colin. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has you covered at 11 right after the National. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.